Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. That's me, this guy right here, your griot to tell you a story, to crack the door so you can see who you really are, so you can be the decider. So that was my buddy. He's from Yugoslavia. And, you know, Yugoslavia had three different types of cultures, right? And it's really, so I went to Yugoslavia first time as a photojournalist in 1984 to photograph the Olympics there. They had it in Sarajevo, beautiful city. I mean, one of those special European cities, right? And I made friends and had real great connects. And then they came and visited me in New York and all that kind of great stuff. And then a few years later, the war happens and they blew that place apart. And thanks to Bill Clinton and Hillary, about 1 million people died. You know, the decisions they made caused the war to be way worse than it had to be. And no one ever really talks about that, right? But people from that neck of the woods sure do. So that was one of my friends who went through that. And so I have friends, I know a zillion people. And the bourgeois, they don't have any, oh, my coffee latte that didn't have the right kind of cream in it. My life is, Johnny Toilet, the guy who kept trolling, saying gay, whatever he was. Gay was the word that stuck out. Anyway, Johnny Toilet, you talk to him, it's like his parents, he gets about $2,500 to $5,000 every month from his trust. His parents pay all his bills, and he doesn't even leave the place. He just buys it from Amazon and says, anyway. But he's never, I've had such a hard life. Oh, I work, blah, blah, blah. And that's one of the reasons why the world is as it is. Said hi. Hi. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Come on, subscribe. Let's get a lot of subscribers. So come on, the last show we just did, I went off, there was 3,000 views. That's pretty good, not bad, kids. And towards the end, you guys were really, really asking some interesting questions. What the message in the world? Again, I ask you to please put it in caps, everything. I can't read it. What's the message? Message about the world is you are a spiritual being in this little thing here, this meat puppet is an avatar. It's not you. It is your sandbox to learn what your soul should be. And it's not, oh, my life sucks. Oh, I only have millions of dollars and it's so terrible, so hard. My latte isn't the right temperature. Oh. Go take a few days in the Gaza Strip, see how that works for you, right? And when people, judge other people without any knowledge of what they're going through, that's another. It stems from belief, right? Instead of faith, right? Stems from this advice as your next generation. Okay, so my buddy, we were talking about all kinds of things. And so he was talking about, I tell stories, he tells stories. And we're a lot different. We're like two brothers. We're twins from two different mothers. And he was in Yugoslavia and I was in New York. Anyway, and his wife is the queen. She's the bomb. So they're a great team, and they live in St. Louis, I think. Anyway, in a big urban center, and they have a great life. And he travels all the time, and he makes travel films, videos, right? And that's one of his gigs. Anyway, so he always tells me stories about all his trips and his journeys and all the rest. And they do that because she gets sick of him, and when she starts to get sick of him, he feels it, and he takes like a 2-month trip around the world. And he has so many travel miles, he never had to buy an airplane ticket. and he sleeps in the airports. And I mean, he travels the same way I did. So anyway, and so he tells me these stories. Say, oh, you got to get your passport. I said, I try, but it doesn't seem to work. So when God wants me to have a passport, I will have one. Like I had a passport in New York. I mean, not New York, in Europe, and then I kind of lost it. And I had a Swedish driver's license that looked just like a passport. So I started using that as a passport, and it didn't make any difference. They would stamp it, and I just do what God tells me to do. I don't really go any place. So there's the first rule. Just do what God tells you to, and you have to do that by being conscious intent. Everything you do, just don't fluff it off. Just don't be unconscious. Don't go through life on autopilot, right? And pretty much 98% of the human race does it. That's why we have wars. That's why everyone's miserable. Me, now I've died 7 physical times. I've been shot twice. I didn't have a gun. I mean, they didn't want to shoot me. They were going to shoot someone else, and I didn't want that guy to die, and I didn't want that guy to go to jail. So I grabbed the gun and pointed it down, and I got shot. I did, I lost blood, and I was covered in blood, and everyone, oh my God, you shot out. It's like shooting JR. You shot out twice, not once, twice. My boss, I worked for the New York City Housing Authority, and I never wore a uniform. I was, a police, I worked for the New York City Housing Authority police, right? And they don't have that anymore. But I was a conflict resolution. I'd be the first through the door to talk to the crazy person, right? And I'd be a Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops and shorts and sunglasses, and I'd have a radio, and I'd have my little dangly thing that showed who I was. But that's it. And usually I walked in with 2 6-packs of really cold beer. That usually fixed any situation. But a couple times I got shot. I got my palm blown off. This palm right here, not so bad. See, just a little scrapiness there. But boy, did that bleed. Woo, who knew that? But it didn't hit any things, but it just scraped that whole thing right off. That's what's left of it. And I got shot right over here, and it just kind of went through my shirt and grazed my skin. And it bled. It didn't even go to the fascia. It just went right. And I was wearing a white shirt, so it was redder than red. It didn't look right. So my boss kept saying, Al, you got to stop doing that. And then he said that when his boss was around, then he says, Al, you're doing a great job. And if you do get shot and you die, we'll give you an inspector's funeral, which is the with the bagpipes and the horses and right. So that was, but keep it up, because I'm going to be made captain, because, I'm your boss, and the thing we do, we take care of 2,200 apartments. There was 6 of us. One of me, 5 other officers, right? And my partner, she was the angel of death. So we were the dynamic duo of the good cop, bad cop. And so our statistics, crime went down, deaths went down, everything went down, because we just knew everybody. We would just walk around. We didn't wait for trouble. We just kind of kept walking around and talking to play. She could play basketball she was be armored up. And she would play basketball with the black guys who played basketball for money. And she'd kick their butt, wearing 50 pounds of, military gear. Like I said, she was the angel of death. So, number 1, love's co-creation. You are that covenant. Back in the day with Moses and the burning bush, and the burning bush, hey, go get the tribe out of Egypt. And he said, fuck them. And he said, no, you got to go do it. Well, why should I? And the burning bush, because I ask you. And Moses said, so who are you? And the burning bush said, I am. The burning bush didn't say, I am who I am, because the only person who says that is basically Popeye, right? No. Love's co-creation. The burning bush is not Popeye. What the burning bush said is, I am a work in progress, and in covenant with you, meaning Homo sapien sapien, right? The tribe, the guys who got thrown out of the catalog shop, right? And and I need you. You fulfill me. I can't. No, I can't move forward. I'm a work in progress. I mean, you know, love's co-creation isn't the alpha and omega. Now it has that energy in it, that that agape energy, right? Unconditional love. But it's not the alpha and it's not the beginning and the end. No, because it's a work in progress. What we are here is a work in. That's why there's no end times, and yeah, there can be some bad times, and we're coming up to a place where, if we consciously intend, be the decider, and don't let the chuckleheads like Peter Tilk, the cutout of the Sith Lord. No, we have to do God's love in every day and every way. And again, I am not Santa. I am Santa's younger brother, Bob, that takes care of the naughty and nice list. And I know, I see, the nut I see is everything you do. I see you, I see you. So you better be good. You can fall out. Well, I've been in a car crash where it was kind of dangling there, Well, I'm a little south of Alpha Centauri from the dog star. That's kind of where I'm from. Because we're all stardust kids. But in this incarnation of this bag of water here, I am from New York City, but I've lived all over the world. I come from a military family. My daddy, he worked for General Curtis LeMay. The guy wanted to blow the world up. And can you hear that noise? They're destroying the most beautiful mountain range over there, so they can build a golf course on top of it and put 15 $100 million homes on it. That in itself is the sin of omission, right? Let's see, come on, guys, print this shit in big, because I can't read what you're writing. Do I? I am an African American that's melanin challenged. I spent the first 6 years of my life in Harlem, New York City, and I lived with my Italian grandma, and our upstairs neighbor was Dr. Green, and she had 6 kids. And during World War II, she was a major, and she ran a hospital in Europe that was, during the war, in a tent, like a MASH unit. She was one of the first people to put that together. And it was for black people. But her hospital was so good, the white people wanted to go there. No money in the pocket. I can give you happiness. Anyway, let's see. 14 minutes, 26 people watching, 11 thumbs up. Thank you for that. Remember, make some comments that you're doing right now, and then after this, go back and watch all the old show, kids. I'm telling you. You want to learn something? Go back 7 years. Go back to the first one. The first one is me in front of a phone store, and the guy has just, did you know about this YouTube thing? I said, no, yeah, I know this guy who's kind of, yeah. What about it? He says, well, got this new phone. You can be on YouTube. I'll set it up for you. And so he's pushing the buttons, and he goes, what do you want to call it? And I said, what do I want to call it? How about Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob? Why do you think Black America is cool? No, Black America isn't quite cool. Black America is itself. And when you are itself, you are cool. That's what's cool about Black America. It's itself, because it has not been homogenized into Velveeta cheese. That is the Make America Great Again, Velveeta cheese. That's what they want. That's the Velveeta cheese world. That's what they want. What's his name? The guy who wrote Slaughterhouse, whatever, Billy Pilgrim. He wrote this, you know, Good Morning America or Wheaties and something. I mean, that guy, whatever his name was a great writer of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, 90s maybe even. And I knew people who, so I met him a number of times. And I was at so I kind of, back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, I was one of the interesting people who helped start the no nukes movement in America, right? And that was no nukes as nuclear power and no nukes as, ban the bomb. So I knew people, I knew beatniks of the 60s who would have banned the bomb, and 50s were banned the bomb people. That kind of gave me that, right? Down on the Bowery. And so Dr. Green, right? My grandma's upstairs. She was blacker than coal. Like she had 6 or 8 kids. But she had a baby about 3 months before I was born. So, I was born and I survived my mother in her womb, and I survived. Dr. Black saved my life, who is basically, she was 4'2". She wasn't a child, but she was that tall. And I just called her Dr. Black. She saved my life. She invented modern infant birth trauma processes, so kids would just die. And that was my mom's, process of birth control. Just, miscarriage. Anyway, so, but I lucked it out. There were 2 before me. And me, I was being strangled by my mom's, umbilical cord. It's a blue baby. And my mom was in there in the stirrups, and her buddies were her doctors, and they're all smoking cigarettes and drinking in the delivery room, right? And my mom, yahoo! And Dr. Black saw this, and she kind of looked at the chart and said, this is a good place to try out my new technique. So she went in there, martial artist that she was, and these 2 tall guys, she whacked one guy in the knee, and like normally your knee does this, right? She hit it so it went the other way and went snappy voo, and he collapsed on top of the other guy, and they were both knocked out. And then their crew got scared and ran away, and she came in, and her crew came in and cleaned up the place and dragged those guys and put them in a closet, because they belonged in a closet, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that now. And so, but this was 1950, and so my mom was, Wah! So Dr. Black stuck the oxygen mask on my mom's face, and then turned up the nitrous oxide, right? So my mom kind of went from being drunk out of her mind to being drunk and severely relaxed. And so nitrous oxide opens up every pore of your blood vessel. So all that blood, Dr. Black put her little hands, because she was a diminutive woman, and stuck her hands in my mom's womb and took the noose that was around my neck away. That allowed the blood to go into me, and I went from being blue, that's what a blue baby is, being strangled, and those morons trying to drag me out of there with salad tongs. Has everyone from the original moved? They come and they go, right? So I'm always here, The guy is immortal, is that, or immoral? I don't know what to do. Again, print this stuff in capitals so I can read it. I'm not Santa, I'm his brother, Bob. Mind control. No, mind goblin? Mind goblin. I'm going to have to write a novel about that. Mind Goblin in Des Nuts. Well, thank you for putting it in capitals, even though I don't know what you're talking about. Father Christmas, could you begin? No, I am Bob. I take care of the naughty and nice list. I don't mess with the presents. I just deliver judgment. But not really. I give everyone a passing grade. Saved by a dwarf. Yep, that's it, dwarf. But there's other words for it. Diminutive woman, I think, was, and she saved my life many, many times, all the way up till I was 11. And then at 10, I said, that's it. I am never getting sick again. I've had it. And because I kept every February, I would get really sick and kind of die. Not really die, not like the other 7 times that I really died. Like at birth, really died. And she saved me. The other, between 1 and 10, I would get really sick. Strep throat, pneumonia, that kind of stuff. But when I was around 10, I got everything all at once. We went down to Florida, and I really, I said, well, we'll go to Florida and on his birthday, and it won't be warm, and he won't get sick. Well, I really got sick. And my Aunt Gracie had to get me out of that one. And everyone else slept. My mom, Aunt Gracie, and I stayed at the Florida house in Pompano Beach. And there was a really rich people country club, not country club, but beach club, right? Called the Barefoot Mailman. Go Google that one, Barefoot Mailman. It had a great dining hall, had a great pool, had a couple of tennis courts, an amazing beach where people would come with platters and give you food and cocktails, and you go swimming, and in the clubhouse, big 3 dining rooms, really big, like ballroom, where on Fridays they'd had the big band and dinner, and 2 other ones, one for where every guys would go for lunch, and another one where if you live there, you could kind of go there and get something to eat 24/7, because they had little bungalows, right? I mean, this was very Hollywood. This was started by the Hollywood folk. And they had their own water tower, so they'd had good water pressure. And they, and it was like women played, bridge, and men gambled, and they had a billiard hall and all of that kind of good stuff. And so when my dad and all the others left, Aunt Gracie, my mom's best friend, and my mom, we stayed because they said, he's still sick, he has to recuperate. We spent like 2 months there. By the time they left, I was good to go. We would walk. We didn't have a car. We would walk from that house about a mile to the Barefoot Mailman. It was no deal. We could go just across the street, A1A, and go down the beach and walk on the beach, which was loads of fun. And but there was a bridge. We had to come up and go over the bridge, and then there's the Barefoot Mailman. And the bridge was made out of wood. That's how long ago this was, right? And now today you go there, I couldn't even find a place because they filled in all the land and built condos. So there's only one place in all of the east coast of Florida that you can get on the beach. And that is up in a place called, what do they call it? It's near Stewart. It's between Stewart and that other place. And it's like a throwback to the 1950s. They're like 1950 motels there. Jensen Beach. That's the only place you can get on there because they built a nuclear reactor right there, and everyone glows, right? And so just to give them we're killing you slowly with kindness and taxes, and but we're going to let you on the beach because no one else would go there because it's radioactive. So you can go on the beach, right? So. Hello, hi, how are you, sir? I'm doing good. You can call me Rabbi, you can call me Sensei, you can call me Griot, or you can call me Owl Bob. So, subscribe, hit those likes. Let's get some people. I mean, I'd love it for 20. And you know what you really got to do? You got to go back and see the rest of the story. You're only getting edges from when you watch just one show, like, or a new show, right? Because it's just a stream of consciousness. Back there, when I still had a mind, you know, back in 2017 when I started doing this thing. And like I said, the first show was me in front of a phone place, right? And the other thing, so do you want to email? I said, sure. He goes, which one? I said, Google. What's the big, the Googie thing? What do you, Googie? I said, oh, Google. Yeah, Google. We'll put you on Google. We'll give you Google. So my email is the Dude Awake. That's me, the Dude. They call me the Dude for years. The Dude Awake. 42 at Gmail, right? I don't know what the weather's going to do. Let's see what time is it. It's only 3:01. So I'm going to do this for another while, and then I'm going to go because I don't have my rain. I don't have my garbage bag, so I don't want it could rain, but it's too cold to rain. So anyway, let's see. Let's see. What you say there? What's up? You think? I have no idea. Hammer time! Yeah, I always like that. There was always a good downbeat with Hammer. Crackadolf, Gray. Okay, whatever you say. This guy is a goofball. Of course I'm a goofball. I'm a chucklehead. I'm whatever a cheeky monkey. I'm all of the above. I'm a lucky guy. That's what I am. And that is a cadre. So you guys who write stuff here, you're more my Padawan. You're not really a cadre. Back in the day when I first started, we had quite the group, right? And a few of you jump in every now and then. But like I said, go back and look at my old shows because all the stuff that's happening right now, I was talking about it 2017. What is that? That's here it is 5. So that's 8 years or 9 years or 7 years, whatever it is. I was talking about everything. I said, Donald Trump's going to be president. And 2017, he was president. Okay. So, but before then, before I had a YouTube channel, I was going on about Donald Trump. Like back in 1990, back in 1984, I was saying Donald Trump was going to be president, right? And that he would be just like Ronald Reagan. He is. He's an actor. He's a game show host, He's not as smart as, at least Ronald had a few marbles up there. Not our boy. Our boy is, I think he's a walking dead. That's why he smells so bad, He's a rotting corpse that's been animated, right? And so sometime soon, probably before the mid-elections, he's just going to, take a header off the steps of Air Force One. The best way to know what's going on with Donald Trump and his administration is to watch South Park. I mean, it is the stuff they did with the FCC guy, and he kept falling down the staircase because, Donald's, who's really Saddam. Donald Saddam is, having a baby with Satan, the plane boss, JD. He is, he wants to be president, sooner rather than later. So the FCC guy seemed to kept getting in the way, so he kept ending up in the hospital. And the last time he's like broken everybody. He's like all thing up, and he's how they put your limbs being held up by weights and stuff, right? Well, they had him, and he was like this, and he had his arm. The FCC guy had his arm like. I mean, I love those South Park boys. They are really, 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 really. They are so good that the people who they work for, guys who own CBS and own Star Trek and that company. Desi Lou owned that guys. Anyway, they gave those guys $1 billion for the next 2 seasons. Not bad, boys. Not bad. So that's what's going to happen to me. At some point, some entity, like maybe those guys, will watch, look at this guy, and start putting me on South Park as the character actor. And then they'll, get a hold of me and send a limousine and drive me to wherever they are, and I can like luxuriate like them. Hopefully, in the next, before it really gets cold, can't spend another winter here. And so, and then we will work together to make new platforms and new visions of aesthetics, and it'll be fun. So that's what God said. Just you died in 2014. You got to kind of clean up house, which I've done a great job, and so these miracles are happening to me, and so everyone knew I was going to have my hip changed in the churches, and I go to 3 different churches, and so I've helped them all, get their 501c3s and do this and do that and all kinds of stuff. God sent me to them all. I mean, that was why I'm here, to hang out with these people, get them to work with each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because those guys can do it, and we did it during the event. But it took that to get everyone to work together. Now they're back to pudding heads. But anyway, everyone knew I was going to have my hip replaced, and then my hip got to be really better, and I knew what kind of operation was, so I called up the surgeon and said, hey, I don't think I need it. And he goes, we talked and talked, he said, much better. He says, I can always cut you. Show up here in a week or so, and I want to check you out, do some, CAT scans and some X-rays and some physical therapy tests, and if that's what you're doing has done what I think it did, then we have to figure out a modality. And you always tell me how you figure out these modalities. Let's do it, buddy, because modern medicine is falling apart. So those are the kind of things that I'm, poking around. And then a month ago, my car died. The Jesus Mobile. The rods went. I was going up a big hill, and sorry, it gave up the ghost. But when I bought that car and I took it to my mechanic, he said, Al, what'd you pay for this? I said, well, I didn't buy it. The churchy people bought it for me. What'd they pay for it? I said, $800. He goes, well, I mean, that's, how many miles have you put on it since you came to me? I said, I don't know, 500. He goes, well, if you rented a car, you may save some money. Okay, good. He said, this thing is, the rods are just about to go, and it could go, you could pull out of my garage and go and take a turn, and the engine could be dead, and that's it. Or who knows how much more, I got 60,000 more miles. Another year and a half, I drove the Jesus van. And that's what it was. Every time I said, okay, Jesus, wherever you want me to go, right? So obviously, it was time for the Jesus van. And I couldn't, when the thing died and I was out in the middle of nowhere, and at least I could get cell signal, and no one would pick up. The church people, no one, hey, I need a hand. Click, You should not be drinking your own piss. I have to say you're wrong on that. Back in 1972, I lived with a great healer, right? A great herbalist, a great osteopath, right? We were both working at the VA doing alternative medicine, right? And so we were first buds, and our boss sent me around to lots of different places to learn lots of different stuff because she already took the trip. And so she was there holding down the fort, and I was gathering new data from other places. And I came back, and then we did many, many long shifts. This is during the Vietnam War in Fort Hamilton in Brooklyn, and where they bring these kids back totally, that's a whole nother story. War is just a racket. Read Sniley Butler's book, War is a Racket. The most decorated soldier of World War I. He came out a colonel, and he stayed and a loyal servant to the Constitution. And once he retired, he wrote a book that just told the story. Go read it. Another great hero is a guy named Dr. Quigley, who is the conscience of the Council on Foreign Relations, and he wrote a great book called Hope and Tragedy. And Gary Allen, maybe a book called None Dare Call Conspiracy. That's another good one. Anyway, these are all people at that time I was with, right? And so I was seeing what war was about and working on young guys and gals who came back from the front line just blown up and totally whacked out on morphine, right? And then they changed them over to methadone, which is a drug that was invented by the Nazis because they didn't have enough crazy people. And so they needed a drug, an opiate, that they could get addicted but still do their job. I mean, if they didn't get their shot, they would climb the wall. So they would do whatever. How do you think you barbecue 6 million people, right? And, that barbecue party was, not just one kind of pork. It had every other kind of person that state didn't want, right? There was the others that was advertised. And a lot of them, that was not a nice thing, right? But gypsies and Roma and artists and socialists and communists and lesbians and homosexuals and, Catholic, not Catholic, Baptists, they all ended up in those places, right? So, how long are we? 37 minutes. And I don't hear anything coming. But we have our trolls back again. Well, that's okay. Let's see what else. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. So, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation. So let's deconstruct that. Our Father. It's not a man up in the clouds sitting on a gold seat. No. It's love's co-creation. Who art in heaven. Who art in heaven? Heaven's not here. We're not in heaven. This ain't heaven. So love's co-creation. That's with us, but not in heaven. Because we're not in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, meaning a name that we can only understand the power, which is unconditional love's co-creation. We don't know the name. So hallowed be thy name, we don't know the name, right? That's what the word hallow means, not to be mentioned. Thy kingdom come, meaning it's already here, but we don't think it is. All we have to do is be in conscious intent of love's co-creation as the covenant. You hear those trucks? That's the omission, the sin of omission, destroying love's co-creation right there. I moved here because there was nobody here, and it was the most gorgeous, beautiful place. It was a rainforest. It was just, and the people who were here were just the salt of the earth. They love me, I love them. And then, basically, the corporate world laundered their money by buying all the properties here and pushing people off their property and pushing them up in the woods. Right now, we have about 5,000 homeless people up in the woods. And the churches and the food, pantries don't want to help them. We started one where our mission statement is a hand up, not a handout. Now they don't even want to give the handout, right? Because we don't get any food anymore. We used to get a lot of fresh stuff from Food Line, Oh, what's Jeff saying? I'm back. Oh, I'm back. 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 You're way back. Way back. Way back there. Uh, Come on, guys. Just please. Pretty please. Put things in caps so I can actually read them because it, just as I get the first three words, it goes, zoop. So, just like that. That is you. There's someone who did it. Okay. So anyway, those guys gave us fresh food, and so did Kroger's gave us some good stuff. And what Kroger's gave us, they gave us Progresso Kansas soup. That was just the best. And Food Line gave us their deli meat, stuff that they slice themselves, right? And so it came out of things that were like already predated, so they sliced it and added on a few days, and then when it was almost the label, they just gave us, they froze it and gave it to us. We don't get anything but highly processed food now. So it's just me, and I can go around and pick burdock out of the woods, and burdock's actually in the woods even in the winter, even if it's snowing, burdock's there. And so you mix that up with hamburger helper, it's not that bad. It's pretty good for you, relatively good for you. But I've been, I had really bad diabetes, everything you get from being super obese. I weighed 460 pounds when I worked in the corporate world. And then I died. And then I got myself to a certain level of homeostasis. And then it took me 7 years to lose, to get down to, 240 pounds, 260 pounds. And now, a couple of years later, I'm down to 199. And that's my high school weight. Sounds like something's about to blow up. Here's a Jeffy boy. Dreamy Land is gay. Dreamy Land is gay. You know what? The good old psychologist, the French psychologist Lacan said, whenever you point the finger at somebody else and say they're that's what you are, right? So I guess you're gay. And there's nothing wrong with that, Oh. So I'll keep going, especially if somebody else comes on other than this Dreamy Dream guy. But at least he puts every other letter in capitals. That's Black Jeff. Black Jeff. I think the Jeffy, what's his name? Jeffy. I think that's actually Jeffy Amelie is really Johnny Toilet. The canary in the cultural coal mine of guilt. That's our boy. I don't like to block people. I want to have us energize our affection for each other to spread our love over guys like that. The only way, and in the first adoration, the first year I did this, man, I had trolls that make these guys look like Girl Scouts. And be like, you should get rid of them, blah, 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 blah. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I would just talk to them and tell them how much I cared about it and how much, I can see that they have a great potential, but they're wasting it on, childish things. And they are suffering from the sin of omission because they won't let God into their heart. Now, God is there. It's not like God's not there. There's no such thing as a bad boy, but they can do bad things. Anyway, so I just kept doing that, and those people would change, and they become part of it. Like Dragon was one of those. Buddy was one of those. A few others, and they still pop in every now and then. So, ooh. Oh, I put it back there. Good. Okay. So I'm gonna unplug this, and I'm gonna get up and stretch. Okay. Yep. There we go. Come on. Well, the thing ain't coming back, so I'm gonna get off.